All right, to Mozambique, where thousands have protested the results of last month's presidential elections. Demonstrators clashed with police in the capital, Maputo, accusing the ruling Frelimo party of rigging the election. At least 20 people have been killed, reportedly, since the protests began last month. DW's Dianne Hawker reports.
Fury on the streets of Maputo. Young Mozambicans say they'll continue to protest until the government responds to their concerns about last month's election. They believe the results were rigged to give the Frelimo party another 5 years in office. The party has already been in government for 50 years. That's decades longer than most of these protesters have been alive. They say their voices have not been heard and that the constitution has been violated.
My feeling is one of revolt. As a young Mozambican who's a part of a generation that is extremely marginalized by the system, today represents revolution to me. It represents a new beginning from the point of view of the youth.
But the authorities have met the protests with significant force. In some cases, security forces have shot at protesters with live ammunition. International rights groups, including Amnesty International, have called for police to show restraint.
This conflict scenario was created by the police. The people came out to demand their rights. We're here to demonstrate for electoral truth. That's all. The police are making things worse.
Doctors and nurses also demonstrated this Tuesday, calling for an end to the violence.
People are free to accept or reject the election results. And we're not here to demonstrate the electoral results. We're here to demonstrate against violence against the Mozambican people.
The protests are now in their second week. Parts of Maputo are deserted as businesses and government offices close their doors. Opposition politicians say the governing party Frelimo has suggested talks. Protesters have already rejected such compromise, saying the only answer is political change that reaches Mozambique's highest office.
Well, our correspondent Dianne Hawker has more now on the tensions in Mozambique.
It's been 2 weeks solid of protests in Mozambique, and protesters there say they won't be letting up until their concerns are heard by the government. The main issue there is the results that came out from the October election. The opposition parties and protesters believe that that election was rigged in favor of the ruling Frelimo party. They argue that the votes that should have gone to opposition parties were instead given to Frelimo. And that's led to people taking to the streets in large numbers across Mozambique. Another major issue that has emerged is that cell phone signal has been interrupted since the protests began, leaving many people without access to the outside world. Even DW colleagues who are based in Maputo have struggled to send out information on stories and information about what is happening in that country. Rights groups across Mozambique have complained not only about the cell phone interruptions, but also about the number of killings that have taken place since the protests started, arguing that the government has been too heavy-handed in its response. At the end of the day, protesters want some kind of response from the Mozambican government, and they say they won't stop protesting until they've seen some kind of accountability and change.